Members, it's already the scheduled time for the panel meeting of the panel on constitutional affairs. We've also got a quorum. May I call the meeting to order? The first item on the agenda is confirmation of minutes of our last meeting. Please see paper CB 2345/1213. So far, we've not received any proposal for amendments. So, if members have no objection, the minutes are confirmed. Second item on the agenda, papers issued since the last meeting. There are 3 already circulated to members. The third item is the agenda for the next meeting. Please invite the administration to join us now. From the administration, we have Mr. Gordon Leung, Deputy Secretary for Constitution and Mainland Affairs. Mr. Leung, we are discussing the agenda for our next meeting, dated the 21st of January. Is that right that you've got 2 items for us? Please let us know. Thank you. In January, we have got 2 proposals. First is the policy briefing of the Seas Policy Address 2013. We propose to brief members on the policy initiatives related to my bureau in the Seas 2013 Policy Address. We would also like to consult members on legislative proposals for DC appointed members, to the abolition of DC appointed members. And then the second is a report of the Commissioner on privacy personal data. Members may recall that some legislative amendments came into effect on the 1st of October, but provisions related to marketing, direct marketing, have not yet been implemented yet, and members would like us to report to you our preparation state of readiness as far as the implementation of these are concerned. Okay, Richard Yan, Charles Mock, and Emily Lau. Our agenda is quite meaty today, so please be as succinct as possible. Mr. Richard Yan, thank you. Chairman, I ask for a special meeting to be convened to discuss a change in the functions and roles of the Central Policy Unit because it has got unauthorized duties, so to speak, and I'd like to convene a special meeting, and they may have to apply for funding approval for the creation of posts. So I hope that we can have a full review of the roles and functions of the CPU as soon as possible. I understand the Public Service Panel has already discussed this, and they've agreed to let that paper go to the ESC, which will discuss it in early next month. Regarding the roles and functions of the CPU, Deputy Secretary, is it under your bureau, the Central Policy Bureau? The roles and functions of the CPU is not under the CMA Bureau. And Chairman, as you said, the item has been discussed by the PSP and ESC, and then was also discussed by the House Committee on the 23rd of November and the Else and the Legislative Council on the 28th of November, respectively. So there is no need to discuss that again. All right, it is not under the CMAB, but is it within the terms of reference of this panel? If yes, we can invite the CPU and also the CS4A to attend our meeting. What about this panel would like to have a discussion and review of the roles and functions of the CPU. If it is within our terms of reference, I'd like a special meeting to be convened as soon as possible. In early February, the ESC is going to discuss this paper. That's why I want a special meeting in early January or in January. Because a change in the role and functions of CPU should be discussed by a certain panel, PSP, the Public Service Panel, only dealt with a very small part of the whole thing, and that is the creation of posts, but not the roles and functions. Any member who would like to speak? Mr. Ip caught him. 1 minute, please. Well, this is about the terms of reference of this panel. According to the administration, well, it is not the terms of reference of the CMAB, or rather this panel. So should we convene a special meeting? I'm against it. Besides, I don't know which department is responsible. I think it was the CS4A who came to explain the matter to us. I don't know which panel it is. Perhaps it should be the PSP. This PSP can give us a paper. And I don't think it is appropriate for this panel to discuss the roles and functions of the CPU. Ms. Emily Lau. We discussed this at the last meeting. Chairman of the PSP, which had just a discussion on that matter, said that it was not appropriate for her panel to discuss a change in the roles and functions of the CPU. So I thought we all agreed that it should be taken up by this panel. Of course, I understand that it is not for the CMAB to answer our questions, but the appropriate officer should be invited to come here. It's a very controversial matter, and I said perhaps we should sort out the roles and functions first before funding approval is sought. I thought the administration was going to do that, but now it appears that it's going to go to the ESC direct. And Chairman, somebody said that the ESC already discussed that. Of course, it's not true. It's just the PSP. Listening to Xu Xinpo and Mrs. Carrie Lam, the two, what they say was totally different. So the policy must be explained to the relevant policy panel before posts can be created. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, I don't think there is a corresponding panel here because it is a rather high-level body within the administration, and it only has to be accountable to the CE and the CS4A. So the best forum to discuss it is the council. But where can we find a place in our sitting to discuss it, either in a German debate or to apply for special leave from the President? And I think it is more appropriate to invite Mrs. Carrie Lam to come to discuss with us. That cannot be replaced by anybody else. Mr. Leung, Chairman, I think you know that the CPU, if CPU is going to be changed as suggested by Mr. Xu Xinpo, it will become the Central Propaganda Department. And Sophia Ko said that she would be more than happy to attend our meetings, but so far we have not really met her here. So I believe that the CA panel is, of course, the right forum to discuss it. If a central propaganda department is to be set up, this is the right forum. So I support Mr. Lee Chuk-yen's view. Ms. Helena Wong, are you on the same issue? Yes, I think we should discuss the duties and responsibilities of the CPU to see whether it's been changed, because the higher education sector is very concerned about this, and they are organizing a signature campaign. The CPU will withdraw the funding for RGC totaling $20 million per year, and the sector is concerned as to whether it is really academic censorship. Well, then your issue has a wider scope than what we've been talking about. Mr. Wong Kwok-kin, it's perfectly okay for the matter to be taken up here, but I query whether a special meeting is needed. Is it really that urgent? Is the administration going to bulldoze the matter to the FC? You can ask the administration to defer it. Is it really so urgent as to warrant a special meeting? Well, before going to the FC, it should go through ESC first. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. As the Deputy Secretary said, it's not within the terms of reference of this panel. Should we really be concerned with all kinds of things if it is not within our terms of reference? The reason why we have so many panels is for the sake of division of labor. If it is not within our terms of reference, as said by the official, then I don't think we should discuss the matter. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, he raised his hand. I don't know whether it was for this issue, but he's just walked out to answer a phone, so we can't afford to wait. All right, some members want to follow up this matter. Some have different views. In fact, it is not within the terms of reference of this panel. Perhaps Mrs. Carrie Lam should be the relevant person to talk to. Let me approach Mrs. Carrie Lam before we consider the way forward. All right, as I said, due to time constraints, Chairman, you can discuss with the CS4A, but you have to tell her that before this matter is properly dealt with, the funding request should not go to the ESC and FC. Can you do that, Chairman? Well, I undertake to relay your message to her. Well, we've really spent more than 10 minutes on this. We have to meet deputations this afternoon. I don't want to keep them waiting. Okay, Chairman. I have given you a paper, Chairman, because there is a hearing of the UN committee on in March, and deputations would like to express their views in this panel. Are you going to deal with that letter? I would. You preempted me, Ms. Lau. Oh, sorry about that. Deputy Secretary, how about that? Well, as I said, in January, you have got two proposals for you. For the first item, this is to fit in with the timetable of the C's policy address, and would like to brief you on the policy initiatives of the pen of my bureau related to the policy address. And second, report of work of the Commissioner on Privacy Personal Data is the report 2012. And then there are provisions on direct marketing and legal assistance. These are provisions that we'd like to implement in early next year, and therefore we would like to report to the panel in January. Usually, two items are about right for a 2-hour slot. May I ask colleagues at the back to lower the voices? No, it's Jeffrey Lam. I saw I heard you talking. Well, I was in my seat. He came here. Yes, Mr. Jeffrey Lam, please keep quiet. Speaker, soft mic. Well, we really have to deal with the noises, Chairman.
These were not primary pupils. Please repeat yourself now. Well, we propose 2 items. One, the CE's policy address briefing. Second, a work progress report from the Privacy Commissioner, especially in relation to the provisions on direct marketing and legal provisions. These are time sensitive, which we think would be appropriate for the January meeting. Normally, our practice is to have a 2-hour meeting for 2 items. So maybe members can consider this. Ms. Emily Lau, we are going to arrange a meeting, but not in the next meeting. But we're not going to have it after the hearing, right? No. And we need to inform the public in good time. Mr. Charles Moore. Well, I'll leave my comments to a later stage. When? The next item? I'm not going to speak on this item. Mr. Kenneth Kwok. On the 12th of December, I wrote to you about Section 3 and Section 8 of the Prevention of Bribery Ordinance. That's in relation to my previous oral questions of covering the CE under the POBO. Deputy Secretary, any progress? Well, nothing so for the time being. As the CS4A said in your council meeting on the 5th of December, after considering the proposals, if there is progress, we would inform the council of our findings. How long would that take? How long would that take? Do you have a timetable? Well, my recollection is that the CS4A said we would revert to the council when we are ready, but there's no concrete timetable so far. Okay, so no timetable so far, but they will come back when they are ready. So we have covered the proposed items for inclusion. Chairman, you haven't read my letter. And you said I preempted you because there were so many letters from you. There are just 2. That's one dated the 3rd of October concerning the Deputy Director of Hong Kong Macau office, Mr. Zhang Xiaoming, who wrote an article in Mingpao saying there should be an improved system for the CE to report to the CPG. And he also said that the system has to be improved. And also he has to improve the system in relation to legislation passed by this council. Of course, we are concerned by such remarks. The administration must come up with a position in addressing our concerns. What do you think, Chairman? What do you think is the best way forward? Deputy Secretary, our understanding is that the earlier newspaper article of Mr. Zhang Xiaoming was the interpretation given by Mr. Zhang on the 18th Party Congress. The person concerned is not an SAR official, and he hasn't provided any information in addition to his article. So we are not in a position to explain or elaborate on his behalf or try to interpret what he's saying. Well, we have to pay attention to this. We have to be concerned because this affects the SAR government. They should ask Mr. Zhang questions. If there are no problem, a paper should be submitted to this council. It's not just this council, but the public are also concerned. How are they going to improve the system? Well, and he's not going to be accountable to this council. He's not accountable. Because what he says affects the SAR government. It would affect our political system. We have to know. And if we do not agree, we have to put up a fight. I cannot accept the reply from the Deputy Secretary. Well, he's saying that he doesn't have any more information and he cannot really explain things on another person's behalf. Maybe you can write a letter or give us a paper covering the system, the various areas referred to by Ms. Emily Lau. Chairman, from the SAR government's point of view, we act in strict accordance with the basic law. We implement the principle of one country, two systems, and Hong Kong people ruling Hong Kong. As for the director's article, as I've said, we cannot really offer further comments. If members want to get additional information, I can relate members' requests so that the administration can provide a response. Well, I want to get a paper, but I'm not just asking for information on the existing structure. They should tell us whether they have received any directives to change the structure. Well, there will be an MPC delegate election. The candidates should speak up. They are now trying to affect the principle one country, two systems. It's not just Zhang Xiaoming. You can also say something about Xi Jinping. People are worried, and the administration here seem to be very timid in speaking up. Well, the Deputy Secretary is now giving us the official lie. I know you don't have additional information. But what if he suggests improvements that is not incompatible with the basic law, or he touches on the system provided for in the basic law, and that is we have autonomy other than foreign affairs and national defense. Have you read the article? If you haven't, say so. Or I would keep quiet. If you say that that's nonsense, you can say that, well, Mr. Zhang's article is nonsense. Doesn't he has a responsibility to do this? He is a paid official. Mr. Zhang Xiaoming in his article says the central authority's power would cover scrutinizing legislation enacted by the SAR legislature, and legislation can be returned after vetting. This is about the vetting power, where this panel has a responsibility to ask the administration to tell us what its understanding on this article is, and how it would affect our power to enact domestic legislation. Actually, I raised a question with the S4J at the AJRS panel, and he said, well, any system can be improved. And I'm talking about the reporting system for legislation. But the more he said, the more people were worried. So what is the so-called room for improvement? If that's the S4J's response on or to Mr. Zhang's article. Well, at that time, we didn't have time to follow up. We did not have time to ask S4J to elaborate. And what did he mean by room for improvement? Well, I think we have a right to know. I was there. I've heard something similar, but I have a different understanding. But let's not argue here. Deputy Secretary, please relate our comments and then give us a written response. Maybe I can also respond briefly. Did Mr. Zhang ask the SAR government to improve anything after the article was published? We haven't received any such requests. And I have to repeat that the SAR government has always been acting in strict accordance with the basic law. If members have requested to be addressed to the SAR government, I'm happy to relay your request. I would like to get a paper. Please provide complete answers to our questions. Well, you know when you see the paper. Well, don't let go of them. Well, I'm just trying to be realistic. Item 4. Electoral Affairs Commission report on the 2012 Legislative Council election. There are 3 papers. CB2 306 1012 to 13. And that is a EAC report on the 2012 Legislative Council election. Another one, CP 2335 121301, administration's paper. And then there's one more, CP2 347 1213 bracket 03. That's a background brief prepared by the Legislative Secretariat on EAC report on the 2012 legislative election. For this item, we have Mr. Lee Park Hong, and Ms. Ann Tang, PAS for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs, as well as Mr. Anthony Chen Xiulun, Principal Electoral Officer, REO. Deputy Secretary, let me say a few words, and then I'll invite Mr. Lee to supplement, and then he can also take members' questions. All along, we have been working in close cooperation with the EAC to make sure that legislative elections can be conducted in a fair and lawful manner, and that relevant legislative provisions are complied with. So we have organized the 2012 legislative election in a fair, objective, and transparent manner. And on the 22nd of November, we submitted to the CE the EAC report on this election. The report sets out how the EAC monitored and the election, and also major issues and incidents during the election, and relevant action taken to address those issues. And there is also the recommendations made by the EAC on how to improve the conduct of elections in the future. The administration will continue to cooperate with the EAC and take follow-up action on those recommendations. We'll also take on board the public views so that in the future legislative elections will be conducted in an open and fair and transparent manner, and that all the relevant laws are complied with. Mr. Lee, let me elaborate on the contents of the report. As the Deputy Secretary has said, well, according to the EAC, that this election was conducted in accordance with the law, but there are 14 recommendations set out in Chapter 14. I would like to highlight 6 of them. One on registration of electors. In 2011-2012 cycle for electors registration, the EAC launched a number of measures to check the registration and also the registers. Some flexibility must be preserved for suitable adjustment to be made. And the EAC will also want more publicity and education efforts be mounted so that everyone understands that everyone enjoys the basic voting right. At the same time, they should update personal registration particulars in a timely manner. And also to promote environmental protection, a new measure was introduced in the last election, so that candidates were given a choice between individuals or household mailing labels. In the past, we only provided labels based on individuals. This new measure was welcomed by candidates. Many GC members and DC second FC candidates opted for household mailing labels. So with the new initiative, Safe Paper, and we'll encourage candidates in the future to use household mailing labels in future elections. The third one is about election advertisement. According to the new rules, After 1 day of publications, e-copy or relevant information can be uploaded to a EAC central platform for public inspections to comply with the law. In the last legislative election, most candidates are elected to upload their advertisement to this platform, so it's welcomed by candidates. The EAC thinks that this platform should continue to be made use of.
This is an opportunity for the public to inspect their EA, and members of the public can also, by seeing the advertisement, enhance the transparency of elections and display of counting results. Allocation of designated spots. We don't have a lot of spaces available for that, and we have decided to set up the central counting station at Asia Expo because it's quite remote, and the EAC has made arrangements with public transport operators to prepare a transportation guide to make known the traffic arrangements in between polling stations and the counting station, and the information has been uploaded to the internet for the public's inspection. This has increased has made the counting station more accessible. And then display of counting results. Because the counting venue for FC, for the DC second FC sector, there are over 500 counters. So to make it easier for people to know the progress of counting, we have prepared a counting information display system, and it greatly enhanced the transparency of counting, and also made it possible for the candidates to monitor the progress. And for the first time, we have got the interim counting result system. With the assistance of the system, once confirmed, the accumulated votes got by various candidates would be uploaded to the system for the public to inspect. It's been very useful for the candidates, the media, and the public to be posted of the counting progress. I end my introduction here, and I'll be happy to answer questions from members. Thank you. 4 or 5 members have raised their hands. All right. The order. 6. I read out the order. Speaking order. Charles Mock, Emily Lau, Sid Ho, Chair Wai Chun, Chen Chi Chun. 5 minutes each, please. Oh, we still have Helena Wong. Okay. And Yu Xi-wing. All right. Since there are so many members, well, we are supposed to end this item by 3:40, so we have to be more succinct. 3 minutes each. Mr. Charles Mock. Thank you, Chairman. The IT sector has always been regarded as the hotbed for vote rigging, affecting the image of the sector. Well, in 2011, it was found that the Professional Association of Internet got members who had not paid their membership fees for a long time, and they were wrongly regarded as electors. And then a year ago, in December 2011, a few days before the elections, the administration came out to ask people who knew that they were not qualified to vote, do not come out to vote. Now, we understand that we understood that it was not about the registration with the deadline, the 16th of May every year, but the DC elections there. And a lot of disqualification letters were sent by the administration to persuade people not to vote. That was very chaotic. People who were qualified to vote were deterred from voting. And come the 2012 LC elections, it happened all over again. After the final register was out, the association told the EAC that a few hundreds of members were not eligible. So I'd like to know for the 6,700 members on the register, how many of them are really eligible to vote? So this is quite different from DC elections. For district elections, if you've moved to a new place after the final register, voter register is confirmed, you can go back to the polling station of your old address to vote. But for FC elections, the arrangement is different. For so many years, I don't know how many elections have been affected by this awkward situation. The best reform, of course, is to abolish FC elections or FC seats. Prior to that, well, this will affect our voter base, electorate base, because for small circle elections, there are a few thousands electors, and a few hundred would be almost 10% of the total number of voters. And the report is silent on this. I think it has dodged the fact that FC elections are very unfair. And I have got complaints from electors. I also have a similar complaint. When the relevant legislation was revised at the CSA stage, a new association was added to the list, and we were told that there were only about 100 members. It was not until July that we were told by the media that there could be more than 400. Not just the chairman or secretaries. Chairman, I'll speak in the second round. I'd like to see whether the administration can address the first part of my question, and I still have further questions in the second round. Very specific, but you have used up your 3 minutes, so please be very succinct, Deputy Secretary, or you can, or rather, Mr. Lee. Yes, I will be very succinct. Voter registration for FC and GC elections are different. However, the eligibility criteria are clearly set out in the relevant legislation. As part of the report, there are 4 broad groups. First, those who are eligible to vote are clearly laid down in the legislation. And second, those who have the eligibility to vote due to certain status. And third, for a certain sector in the higher education sector, all employees of universities are entitled to vote. And the fourth, members of designated associations. So I think what Mr. Charles Mogg was referring to is the fourth category. The eligibility to vote is pegged to the membership of certain associations. Under the law, the relevant organization is required to provide sufficient information for us for registration. So every time we do write letter to these associations to ask them to confirm the membership qualification, because that may change. Even if the final register is confirmed, changes may make it impossible for some registered voters to vote, and this has been clearly set out in the Bay. And for the registration of FC, should it be improved? We are all ears to the wish of the community, because every time before a major election, we will conduct a review on the arrangements. Chairman, I have just supplementary information for provision of information. Well, in the all past elections, please tell us the number of disqualification letters are issued to all FC sectors. Is it true that for the last elections we had a sudden surge of such letters? Ms. Emily Lau, I suggest that Mr. Mogg make an appointment with the administration which is quite good because they will answer you the relevant questions. Perhaps time is too limited at this forum. The exit polls, we have mentioned this a number of times. We're very angry because many people are using exit polls as part of the engineering campaign, and that is not counted towards election expenses. According to para 10.7, well, people are asked to sign undertakings not to release the information before the elections are over. But I'd like to know whether anyone has followed up on the compliance with the undertaking, and would there be any sanctions if the undertaking is breached? Because given our single-seat, single-vote system, it is easy to deploy or to allocate votes to make it easier for people to be elected. And Appendix 11E, the number of complaints are 130. Number of cases referred from other departments or parties, 32. So I'd like to know the progress of the handling or investigation of the complaints. Has progress been slow because of manpower shortage? The EAC appreciates members' views on exit polls. We've required the relevant institution carrying out exit polls as undertakings. No, you don't have to repeat them again. Is it necessary to issue more guidelines? We have to be cautious. We don't want to give people the misconception that we have the intention to narrow the scope of freedom of expression and freedom of the press. If necessary, we'll see whether new guidelines are needed. No system is perfect. Can people circumvent our rules? Well, even if there are more rules, we cannot resolve this problem. Currently, the arrangement is very transparent. Anyone who would like to exit poll can apply for our permission, and the names are uploaded to the relevant website. And if there is proof afterwards that a certain body has not acted in accordance with the undertaking, then it has to be liable because it has signed the undertaking. What liability? Well, because without approval is an undertaking. The undertaking has been shown to our DOJ. If it is proved that certain condition in the undertaking is breached, the administration can follow up. What liability? I don't know how to follow up. Can you prosecute? Well, the undertaking has certain legal liability. What about ICAC? I don't have further information. I know there are still cases pending. After it has completed its investigation, ICC may make announcements, but it will not brief the EAC of its progress, so I have no further information to supplement. Mr. Chia Wai-chun, out of the room. He's here. Me? Ms. Tong Li-jie. I thought Ms. Sitho's name was in front of me. Are you ready to ask now? Yes. There is more use of the internet in election campaigns. What about the use of electronic advertisement? I'd like to know the number. I don't see too many guidelines for the use of electronic advertisements. I think more and more candidates would like to use EAs, electronic advertisements. But I don't think we need to make a distinction between electronic or non-electronic advertisements, because these advertisements are still canvassing votes for the same candidates. So I think they should not be subject to different regulations unless there are views to the contrary. But then that must go through public discussion first. So far, we do not have separate arrangements for that.
I understand what Mr. Chair is asking. We'll continue to monitor the developments. We'll try to make reference to overseas experience. On the whole, we are very strict. We are stricter in controlling Internet election advertisement. We need to conduct further study to see whether things can be tightened up. But in other countries, they are also rather lax when it comes to the e-advertisement. Mr. Ho, well, you have struck out 190,000 electors. That's because they pass concerns about rigging. But there's a side effect that 190,000 electors have been delisted. But there are cases whereby genuine electors were delisted. For example, a student who is studying abroad cannot provide address proof, so he got struck off. I hope you will not wait until the next round of election. If it's a vote rigger, removed his name quickly. But if they are really genuine and qualified, please allow them to stay on. There are so many lists of candidates, as 14 for islands and for NTEs and 19 lists. It's difficult to have election forums, and if it's a radio program, it's even more chaotic because you cannot see the candidates. So do you want to stick to the equal time system? Or can there be different rules for different media or platforms? Maybe that can be a group discussion so that veteran politicians can have a debate with other veterans, while the newcomers can have a debate with newcomers. I would like the EAC to conduct a consultation first. Please consult the academics. Please do not wait until it's 8 months before the next election, and then you come up with rush decisions. So in the forum, the candidates had to yell because they wanted to make the best use of the 1.5 minutes given them. That's not very useful in publicizing one's manifestos. Mr. Lee, I'll take the first question first. This year, we have a particularly high number of electors who got delisted. I have to admit that, but that's because of some public concerns expressed previously. We have to act in accordance with the law. If we know that the address of an elector is incorrect, we try to contact the elector and update the address. But if we cannot contact the elector, then according to the law, we have to struck off the elector's information from the register. We have encountered a number of cases as referred to Ms. Sid Ho, and that is we know the address is incorrect. The letter is returned, and of course we send a registered mail, but it was never received. So we have no choice but to delist the elector. After we published the former register, and we managed to contact the elector according to the law, we regret that the name cannot be reinstated. We have embarked on a lot of publicity on radio, in the media, through the internet, and we have also put up posters. So apart from publishing the list of the disqualified electors, we also did one more round of mailing to the electors. More than 10,000 electors approach us, but still the 210,000 electors couldn't be reached by us, and they were delisted. The EAC has recommended that we should do more in public education and publicity. In the past, we would not be doing a lot of publicity during non-election years. So this time we are going to try to tell the disqualified electors that they should get re-registered. Are you going to consult the public over the organization of election forums? Well, the traditional thinking used to be like this. If there are 9 candidates, we have to be fair to all 9 of them. So we want everyone to be treated equally. And these TV programs and radio programs should give the candidates equal time. We want everyone to be given equal treatment. If there are 9 candidates, we hope the organizer would invite all 9 of them. We're talking about 9 or 19 lists. Well, yes, as the number of lists grows, there's a limitation that as regards what we can do. We're going to conduct some study and consultation as well. We don't have any preconceived idea here. If the community is of the view that we should not ask the media organizations to give or to invite every list of candidates to come. For example, if we look at the U.S. election, they are not working under this restriction. We'll go for the mainstream view. If so, I believe the EAC will go along and make suitable amendments. Mr. Chen Chi-chin, I want to talk about disqualification of electors. 230,000 were disqualified, 13,000 had their qualification reinstated, but still 210,000 were also disqualified for good. Have you identified the reasons for the disqualification? Are you going to do something to improve the situation? As for the DC Second FC, the joint mailing arrangement, we believe this is not fair to smaller parties. Because if you allow them to have joint publicity material sent to electors, well, you talk about saving paper. I can't understand why this is going to save paper. Well, the joint mailing exercises will not save paper because they may send you the material about different groups of electors, different groups of candidates, but that's not going to save money because they will do it. They're doing it over and over again to different electors. Well, most of the disqualification cases are related to change of address and the failure to inform us of the new address. So at first the address was correct, but then the elector moved to another place and the address was not updated. Is there some room for improvement? Yes, there is. In 2011 and 2012 exercise, after the DC elections, we came up with quick measures after we knew that some of the electors' addresses were incorrect. Well, we had to close the registration. The cycle ended on the 16th of May, so the publicity lasted only for a short time. This year is not an election year. We would embark on publicity earlier so as to reach more electors. As for the joint election advertisement arrangement, it serves two purposes. It gives more room to candidates to conduct joint publicity efforts. Second, it's our hope. We hope that if they do a joint exercise, they won't be sending material separately. I have to admit that the second hope did not realize, but that's just a hope on our part, because the candidates are tended to use or to make use of the full right for mailing election materials free to the electors. Is it unfair to some candidates? Well, I'm not at liberty to say anything about this because there's a judicial review case being handled in the court. Ms. Helena Wong. This time we have a one-person, two votes arrangement, and I have received complaints that some of them only got one ballot paper. They didn't get the ballot paper on the DC 2nd FC election. Have you tried to find out how many of these people got only one vote? Was it because they had retired and their original FC qualification was no longer valid? At this time, candidates have the choice of asking for mailing labels based on individual addresses or household addresses. I asked the REO whether we could do this on a partial manner. For example, for Kowloon West, I wanted to use household mailing labels to save money, to be environmentally friendly. But there were subdivided flats, and then there were many old buildings. If I just use a household mailing label, I don't know where the mail would go, and I would like to have mailing labels for individuals for old buildings, but the household mailing labels for housing estates. I asked for that, but it was rejected under the one-person, two votes arrangement. If the elector is not qualified in an FC constituent, in an FC, then the elector will be eligible for the DC 2nd FC election. Well, there's a form, there's a tick for the elector to put a tick in. So even if there's no indication, we'll take it that the elector opts for DC 2nd FC. We have encountered such cases, but the number is not high. Most of the time, the elector didn't know that he was eligible in a separate FC. Or because of change of membership or status of registration, the elector's eligibility to vote in the other FC have been disqualified. But that's after the final register was published, and therefore he could not vote in the DC 2nd FC election. I understand Ms. Wong's request to have some of the labels based on individuals, some based on households. But we have certain constraints. we have to receive the request and ask our contractors to print the labels, and the quantity is very large. So having considered the pros and cons, we cannot accede to such a request, because we cannot give you labels, some of the labels based on individuals and some others based on households. Maybe in the future, we can consider more innovative ways of printing labels. Perhaps at this, we can then take on board this suggestion.
Mr. Yu, regarding the use of Asia Expo, there was something wrong with the arrangement. People with a political background took up most of the seats, and some of us could not get in. And then somebody walked out, and then the venue became vacant, but the staff would not allow other people to go in still. It was not until photos were taken to show the staff that people were allowed in. This is not very desirable. I hope next time the arrangements will be better. And then many people have moved, so they could not get the polling notice. I would like to some people would like to correct their addresses, but that was already past the time. So could you next time and make the inspection period shorter, so that electors can ensure that their eligibility can be reinstated? There were 1,400 seats inside the venue for the candidates and their agents, and there were 1,000 seats for the public and 700 seats for other backup for the public gallery. But we have to consider public order and security. We have to ensure that candidates have even had a fair chance to get into the venue to observe the counting of votes. However, the venue has limitations. We can't be perfect. In the light of Mr. Yu's questions, we will review arrangements, because indeed there were some incidents. Our decision made that day was purely out of consideration for public safety and order. As regard the taking up of seats by some organizations, because we adopted the fairest way of allocation of seats, and that is to as that is on a first come first served basis. Would there be better ways to allocate the seats? We're willing to listen to comments, but we will ensure that it is fair. What about voter registration? Yes, the timetable now is very tight. Some asked whether we can relax it a little bit. There are different considerations. Now, on the 29th of July, that is the deadline for updating the particulars in the register. If we defer the date a little bit, then the announcement of the final register or the publication of the final register will be further delayed from the 6th of 9th to the 9th of September. There are only 3 months in between. So if we are to change the arrangements, we must ensure that there is sufficient time for candidates to campaign their causes, and the deadline cannot be too early, because that would make it impossible for people to be registered. There are 5 more members speaking in the second round: Mrs. Regina Ip, Yiu-chung, Albert Ho, Leung Sing, and Jiang, and Priscilla Leung. All right, 6. 3 minutes each. Even so, we will still overrun. Mrs. Regina Ip, yes, I'd like to talk about the election forums. There are so many lists in each district. If we use the equal time principle, that is 1 minute or a few dozens of seconds to introduce yourselves, and interruption is allowed. Radio stations allow people to interrupt because they like the whole thing to be more exciting. Well, some academics came to tell me that so far the elections or the campaign has been most politicized at this time. That was even more important than livelihood issues and the economy. And 19 lists, how can you allocate time? Perhaps you should think of a new way. For instance, you single out a few issues, and people who are interested to take part can take part, and so that the discussion will be purely based on the issues instead of personal attack. I've been to many campaigns, and outdoor and indoor forums were also different. It was easier to control the atmosphere in indoor venues. For outdoor venues, supporters might use vulgar language and might shout the nicknames of candidates, affecting the candidates. People just went there to shout and yell to no purpose. If we want quality politics, we should really think about this. At forums, there should be real discussions and not shouting attacks and nicknames. Yes, we have received some submissions regarding the quality and arrangements of forums. Indeed, there is room for improvement because sometimes our voices just overlapped and there were remarks totally not related to the elections. EAC is now handling these complaints. The EAC knows that it has to be cautious. When it comes to media forums, we have to understand that it's about freedom of creativity, freedom, and also editorial independence. Some suggested that guidelines should be issued for such forums. We are all ears to views from the community. Regarding fair time, well, we have lowered the requirements to a large extent. We're not asking for exactly fair time, but each candidate should be given fair treatment. Mr. Yiu-chung, I'd like to talk about declaration. Many people have given their email addresses to the EAC, and were also given CD-ROM containing the email addresses. However, some electors challenged us and queried us for where we got the email addresses. Had the EAC announced these arrangements prior to the elections, we could have saved many hours answering these queries. For instance, EAC can send an email to these electors, telling voters and telling them that their email addresses have been forwarded to candidates, so as to minimize misunderstanding. Because some threatened to complain with the Privacy Commissioner. Internet advertisement or electronic advertisement is just any kind of advertisement. So I think there should be some exemption. When you prepare a banner or a pamphlet, real costs are involved. Whereas electronic advertisement, you can just have a banner ad, you can advertise at large websites. It's okay, of course, for such advertisements, there should be decoration. I have no objection to that. But shouldn't the EAC consult the public? Perhaps class exemption can be granted. For instance, advertising for yourselves on your own Facebook or in some groups, chat groups, perhaps that should be allowed. You should have a proper system to set out exemptions and also items that require decoration. Unless you say that advertisement is advertisement, you don't make a distinction between different kinds of advertisements. Now, I think there is room for negotiation. You don't have to exempt all or to require all to be declared. Some candidates might just post some photographs of activities to their own Facebook or network media. If everything has to be declared, although you have a platform for decoration to lower operating costs, still it makes life difficult for both yourselves and us. So perhaps class exemptions should be considered. Right. Internet activity. Yes, I appreciate Mr. Yiu-chung Kai's view, and we will consider that. I think EA on the Internet and on non-Internet or Internet EA are just the same. Whether it is in the Internet or not, we have to check whether there is any misrepresentation or false representation. And decoration would involve cost anyway. Do we have to monitor the cost because it's rather low? Well, you know, the most difficult thing for us to monitor is the election expenses. If you think that using the Internet, the cost is very, very low and there is no need to monitor this category anymore, we will be very happy to think of possible measures. Regarding emails, we have some we're baffled by some emails. Our emails addresses come from two sources. First are those written by electors in their registration form. We've already made it clear in the registration form that the email addresses would be forwarded to candidates for electioneering. And we've also got electors who send to us their email addresses to be used by candidates. Perhaps we talk about people who registered at roadside counters and they didn't have enough time to check the small letters. So, if necessary, we can inform these 390,000 electors, telling them that the email addresses would continue to be passed on to candidates for canvassing unless they tell us to do otherwise. Mr. Albert Ho, or rather, Mr. Ho Chun-yin, I tried to check my name to no avail. Perhaps my complaint has not been included in your list of complaints that is of concern, that are of concern. And we have also received complaints to the following effect.
Or the polling officers were not properly trained. They are not familiar with the procedures. Let me give you two examples. After getting a GC ballot paper, the officer, the polling staff, did not take the initiative to give the elector another FC ballot paper. The voter was eligible. When asked, he would give the elector the second ballot paper. And in some FC ballot paper, they need to indicate their choice number 1, choice number 2 with a pen. but the polling staff, did not provide the pen. So the elector used the chalk to indicate his wish, and that ballot paper was considered invalid. So what training did you provide to them? Did you explain things clearly to them? And what would you do to improve the situation? Well, before every election, we do a lot of training. For every polling station, the staff will be given a training course. And in the manual we give them, we set out very clearly the steps to follow in issuing ballot papers. So it's all in the manual. The procedures are clearly set out in the manual. But whether some polling staff were not clear about the procedures and forgot to issue the second ballot paper, well, we have to step up training. But I have to say that they were always told of the right procedure. Of course, I will continue to pay attention to see how we can improve the training provided. Well, I have to say that the publicity might have to be conducted by the government and not just by the candidates. Because people may get confused concerning the right procedure for DC second FC vis-a-vis other FCs. Mr. Ng Liang saying, well, I have to attend 2 meetings at the same time. There's a PAC hearing, so I don't know whether my questions have been asked. I want to ask about an issue in paragraph 21. That is a publicity within buildings. They said that to be fair to all the candidates in the same district or in the same sector, it said that if not properly done or property management companies are not doing a proper job, that you may issue a reprimand or serious reprimand. I don't know. How many such complaints did you accept? And how can this achieve the so-called deterrent effect? If there are complaints, what are you going to do with them? And how effective is the deterrent? Can you also consider providing some incentives? Because your deterrent is no deterrent, it's not going to work. Maybe you should provide some reward. Say this is a fair building and properly managed, and you give them an award to recognize that. Mr. Lee, well, it's difficult to say whether the measures are effective. In the 2011 DC elections, we encountered one case. Some building organizations favored one candidate and refused entry of other candidates. When we came across such an extreme case, the EAC issued a reprimand. The press were informed, and then it was widely reported. We haven't received a lot of such complaints, although we did receive some in each election in the past. Sometimes the building management organizations might not be fully aware of the guidelines, or they deliberately try to be unfair to some candidates. We're going to deal with the second category very strictly. We are going to issue statements of reprimand. Mr. Ng Liang Sing asked about the possibility of using a carrot instead of a stick. We can consider this. Well, the guidelines are devised to try to make it fair to all candidates. So we have to consider whether we should be giving rewards to achieve this objective. In the past, not many cases warranted the issuance of a reprimand. Can I follow up some issues? What about shops? You talk about building management. If you have 19 posters displays outside a shop, there's no space for other candidates. And also, whether the place is conspicuous or not makes a lot of difference. How are you going to deal with such complaints? We haven't received many complaints. We want to make sure that the space will be provided to all candidates for displaying their posters. And if that's done, it is considered fair. Whether the location is high or low or favorable or not, it's up to them. These shops and buildings have some knowledge about our guidelines since we have had so many elections already. Ms. Chiang, I want to talk about the locations of polling stations. Polling stations have to do with the delineation of constituencies. So this year, the polling station is in a different location. For example, Yiu-chung F103. Last year, people went to St. Francis Primary School for the DC elections, but for the electrical election, some F103, the electors go to St. Francis, some had to go to the community hall of Shekimei, so it's very chaotic. And there are many elders living in Samsaipo. They went to St. Francis for 2 rounds of checking, ID check, and so on and so forth. And then they discovered that they had to go to Shekimei. And we walked rather quickly, and Mr. Ho Chun-yin would need 2 to 3 minutes. But for an old lady, it's a 10-minute walk. It was very inconvenient. So can we have a unified system for both DC elections and electrical elections? Can we stick to the same polling station for all the electors? Mr. Lee, well, that's one of the factors we consider in designating polling stations. But DC constituencies are smaller. So we have to make sure that the polling station is within the constituency itself. But the electoral constituencies are bigger. So theoretically, electors may have to go to a different one. Well, it's always our first priority to use the same polling station. We have smaller DC constituencies, and the polling station has to be in the same constituency. But the electoral constituencies are bigger. So we'll try to provide the same polling station as a matter of principle. Well, if we keep changing the polling station that people have to go, it's very confusing. All right, the last one for this topic is to speak. The last one to speak is Miss Priscilla Leung. Well, I also have to attend 2 meetings at the same time. More than 200,000 electors have been disqualified. Last year, I received many complaints. Some clarifications have to be sought. These are Hong Kongers who have been working on the mainland. They may not have a permanent address. In Hong Kong, you know, the high rental prevents this. And so far, you haven't made a clear announcement as regards whether they have been disqualified. We encourage our young people to seek opportunities on the mainland. So they have reacted very strongly. I don't know how many of the 200,000 disqualified electors belong to this group. And there are also the students who move out of their hostels and got disqualified. In discussing the legislative amendments, I make this point. The new register is now available for public inspection, and you list the information based on address. There are cohabitation cases whereby the cohabitees don't want people to find out that they are cohabitating with other people. They want to protect their privacy. In the past, the information is arranged in accordance with names, and the problem was not as big. Thirdly, there are many people complaining, frivolous complaints. For example, if you are an independent candidate, and you do not have the word candidate, you just have the word independent, people accuse you of being pro-Hong Kong independence. Some of the complaints even went to the ICAC. So maybe there should be some administrative filtering mechanism so that even trivial matters are handled by the ICAC. And ICAC is therefore used for political publicity. I think if it's a criminal matter, it should be left to the ICAC. But if it's a trivial election matter, we should not waste ICAC resources. Do they have a lot of resources for such issues? We have to pay attention to this. And also for the big constituency, and we also have GC election. We are given much less sport or much fewer spots for election advertisement. Take my constituency as an example, Kowloon West. Well, there are many elderly districts, Whampoa West, Lockman, and the like, where electors had to go a long way to the polling stations. Some of them are wheelchair bound. How can you expect them to go such a long way to the polling station? And yet some other people can just go to a very near polling station. Concerning listing the information based on the address, last term the legislature passed the amendments, and there was a discussion. Some members already said that information listed like that may have an impact on electors' privacy. Again, this is a balancing exercise. We have to weigh pros and cons. The prevailing opinion was that we should go for high transparency, although it might be at the expense of privacy. If we allow individuals to do something different, then we have to have a fresh discussion first, because if we allow someone to do this, then it's not exactly in accordance with the law. As for the referral cases to ICAC, well, actually, when we receive complaints, we will conduct some investigation on our own. It's only after that we find out that some prima facie evidence exists, will the case be referred to the ICAC. I don't know whether the case quota was one where the complainant took the case to ICAC direct. Well, it was a referral case. I would only say that we only make a referral when there's prima facie evidence, and we don't do any filtering or vetting. Will not say that just because the word independent was there, there would be a need to refer the case to the ICAC. Well, the EAC or the REO are not law enforcement agencies. Even though we may think there is prima facie evidence, the person concerned, the complainant can always lodge a direct complaint. As for advertisement spots, we know that in certain constituencies there is a lack of sufficient spaces. We conduct a review. And actually, we have discussed the matter with relevant government departments. If next time there are more candidates, there's a greater demand for the sports, we hope that more space can be allowed for candidates to do their publicity. I won't repeat the same points about polling stations. We have 549 polling stations this time. It was a record high number.
As regards, we can have more polling stations to make it more convenient for electors or voters. It depends on whether that's possible, physically possible, because we encountered a lot of difficulties in identifying polling stations. Many of them are in schools and NGOs and service centers. So we can only do so with the support of the organizations concerned. Many organizations supported us, but some also rejected our request to use their premises as polling stations. So it depends on the objective factors. And we'll also try to identify as many barrier-free access polling stations as possible. So we will see whether we can have more polling stations with barrier-free access. All right, there are a few issues you have not really handled. Hong Kong people work on mainland with no address in Hong Kong, and also whether you can have polling centers entirely for elderly voters. And I think you really have to ask the HAD to review whether we can have more polling stations. All right, Mr. Lee, you have heard suggestions from members to improve your arrangements. So if we have further comments, we can write to you, okay? If members have other suggestions, please write to the EAC. Thank you. We have to move on because we've overrun. Concluding observations by the UN Committee on the Rights of People with Disabilities on the initial report of the Hong Kong Special Ministry Region of the People's Republic of China under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. All right, please invite the deputations and the administration to come in.
好，我哋準備開會啦嚇，
All right, let's get started. On behalf of the panel, I'd like to thank 35 deputations and individuals who are present this afternoon to tell us their views. And I'm going to invite you to speak according to our speaking order. Individual members cannot speak, or each member cannot speak for more than 3 minutes. Yes? Do we have sign language? Well, I was about to say that. Oh, please be seated first. And then the placard. Please put it down. Can somebody help and let the individual know? Have a secretariat advise the gentleman of our arrangements. He wants to communicate with you, Chairman. We do have a sign language translator. And we've speaker is off mic. Speaker is off mic. For those who are speaking with expressing in sign language, please relax the speaking time to 5 minutes because it takes longer for people using sign language to express themselves. Yes, we're informed beforehand and we've got some arrangements. Please invite him to sit down first, and please put down the sign. That's not the right place because the seat will be taken up later. Please put it to the back of his seat. I hope all individuals and deputations would respect our rules of procedures. Each speaker is entitled to speak for up to 3 minutes, but I know that for our friends using sign language, we will lengthen their speaking time appropriately. So some members have given us written submissions, but some not. So may I remind individuals and deputations that when they express their views to the panel, they are not covered by the powers and privileges and protection under the Electrical Powers and Privileges Ordinance. If you cannot hear very clearly, please use the earpiece. Channel 0 is the floor, channel 1 Cantonese, channel 2 English. And please speak into the microphone when you speak, and we'll all be able to hear clearly. After all deputations and individuals have spoken, I will open the floor for members to ask questions. And lastly, I will invite Mr. Yiu-chung, Secretary for Labor and Welfare, to give a general response. Mr. Chung is accompanied by colleagues of relevant departments and bureaus. There are 12, and I will just skip the formal introduction. The administration has prepared 3 papers for members' information, and please excuse me for not reading out the paper numbers. We have already overrun a little bit, so without further ado, I give the floor to members to express their views. First, Ms. Emily Sham. Thank you. Yes, regarding the concluding observations by the UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities on the initial report, well, we would like to have the following comments to make. We should regard this matter from the angle of human rights, and you should ensure that POWs enjoy equal rights. Unfortunately, we are still very traditional. We think that it is just compassion and mercy. We do not regard that PWDs, people with disabilities, have their rights as well. So we suggest that we have disability mainstreaming so that all policies will have regard to PWDs and their concerns when it comes to policy formulation and implementation to ensure that they can have equal access to facilities and various benefits enjoyed by other people of the community. And then there should be a standardized definition for disabilities. We suggest that the administration consult the PWD community widely, including their families and relevant organizations, so that we have a clear definition for PWDs so that the administration and government departments can be better prepared in formulating policies and providing services. And then we should, according to the convention, there must be one coordinating center. Currently, the LWB is the responsible bureau, and the executive department or the executive person is the Commissioner for Rehabilitation, but his powers are just limited. And the Rehabilitation Advisory Committee is just one advisory body with no executive power, and therefore they cannot formulate policies that are binding on government departments. And we do not have this independent monitoring mechanism as set out in Section 33(2) of the Convention. And therefore, we urge that the administration set up an independent executive body and monitoring mechanism so as to comply with the Convention. And we suggest that the CS4A should lead an interdepartmental working group to oversee the and coordinate and implement the relevant requirements under the Convention. And we hope that there can be partnerships set up. Thank you. Next, Mr. Hui Wai-chun. Thank you. We are from Concord Multi-A Club Alliance. We've brought along some pot plants. We would like to wish you Happy New Year. People with mental illness face this problem. Please don't think that our problem lies with access to public health services. Now, you want us to receive a treatment in the community. In fact, we attract in the community. Why do I say so? Perhaps because of the use of old type of medication. You think that you give them a lot of welfare and resources, then the problems can go away. But for us, the most important thing is community participation. By occupation, we can set up social network and have friends. Just treating mental illness is not good enough. So please do not just provide resources to support people with mental illness. The most important thing is whether they can live freely in the community. For instance, if you look at reports, PWDs, people suffering from mental illness in particular, have a very low employment rate. Even if they can get a job, they have to hide the facts that they have to attend regular follow-ups. They want to hide that they have mental illness. They may want to apply for a CSSA, but because the application is on a family basis, they may be forced to split up with their family. And institution places are limited, as some of them are living in private institutions, and the situation is even worse. So the logic is the other way around. If you can promote integration with the community, then in fact the illness will be better. And we cannot just rely on the Rehabilitation Advisory Committee, because we should consider the human rights and equal participation of PWDs. I hope we can have a special committee on the rights of PWDs. And there should be a comprehensive mental health policy as a platform to deal with matters. We should not just be asked to send our views and suggestions to the LWB. I hope there can be a platform for a joint formulation of policies. And I think the situation in Hong Kong is against the convention. Even the community treatment order is against our wish. Thank you.
Miss Sophie Zheng. Well, I'm a formerly mentally ill. The concluding remarks says we should change from a medical approach to a human rights approach. It should not be centered around treatment. I want to share with you a case. And the government departments can be shown to have ignored the convention when I asked for the splitting of the PRH household. And my record shows that since 2009, I did not have to go for the further consultation. Well, I asked for a split of the household registration based on domestic violence, and the department said that my case could not be substantiated. And then when I moved to a new unit, my neighbor liked to yell loudly, and therefore this policy was meaningless. I approached the housing department, and they said it's a noise nuisance, and my chance of getting a new unit would be slim. If I have mental problems, I should consult a doctor. And then I asked the housing department what they would do for my case. And then they said they would try to relocate my neighbor. And then the security guard was asked to be on standing outside the neighbor's door, and then if the neighbor yelled, the security guard would knock on the door. On the first night, the guard was greeted by the neighbor with foul language. So my situation got worse. Now I have to try to avoid contact. And the housing department failed to take into account my need for safety. So they did not look at my case from the rights perspective, but rather they deal with the case from an administrative point of view, and they try to cover up their direction of duty. Well, under Article 16, I should be free from the insult and safety risk. And the government should do things to help me to live in the community. It's illogical to say that I cannot be relocated. I think everyone should be entitled to the right to sleep well. I hope the SWD and the housing department would take into account certain factors. Well, my case is on both factors, both social grounds and medical grounds. I hope human rights would also be taken into account in assessing my application. Ms. Hui. Well, this is my copy of ICCPR and ICSCR. There's a picture here which gives me a feeling of family. There's a a lady. Every time I saw her, we were enjoying some facilities of the LCSD. Her daughter was given some social support, but what it requires is a parent with the time and the knowledge to make use of such support. So we need to have a family concept here. I have to ask Ms. Emily Lau to help us here. We have been told that resources have been diverted from the UGC. We need research, but we also need to make a living. I've adjusted my submission. Well, I originally wanted to give you a list of my requests, but there were so many unanswered requests. We need to make use of our senses. We need to have mobile phone. Well, last week I saw you, Mr. Matthew Chang. I think we should have different time slots. We should use QQ or ICQ to communicate with the deaf. That would depend on how well they can communicate through certain means. We should not just have people following where resources can be found. I don't think the resources should decide the approach we adopt. We should do appropriate things. I have a friend who gave birth to 2 children, both are blind. If you have a fetus who is going to be turned to a disabled child, then who should make the decision? This is about life education. Ban Zai was my teacher. I will continue to look into the right to euthanasia, and then we can have the right to decide where we should live. Because there are people with intubation, old people with intubation who like to be relieved. Mr. Lo Yokai, well, I have to compliment the government for doing the things to promote barrier-free access. That's a piece of good work. But the government should not just stop at providing barrier-free access. There should be access to information and access to community support. And again, such access should be barrier-free. I think we should recognize that the disabled should enjoy equal rights under the Convention. They should not be ignored, or they should not be kept in a hostel, and then superficial services provided, and they become isolated from other members of the public, because that would mean that they have no hope of being socially involved. Access for them is still very limited. We need to embark on new measures to widen the channels. Within the government, there should be a high-level coordination focus to coordinate and implement government policies through an effective system, so that different parts of the government can consciously and systematically work on the promotion of the rights of PWDs. This would have to do with policies, financial resources, and action plans. If we do not have high-level coordination, it will be very difficult to do this. we may be told that the CS4A would coordinate the work of policy groups. But one wonders how much time these policy groups can devote to the mainstreaming of the disabled's perspective in relation to policy formulation and development, and take into account fully their rights. If you look at the rank of the rehab commissioner, it's a low-ranking official. Is he really involved in reminding other government departments in formulating policies to promote the rights of PWDs? Without a full review, this cannot be achieved. And the RAC is just about rehabilitation, not rights. There should be a committee on the rights of the PWDs, and there should be a participation of PWDs. Ms. Ao Yin-fong. Good afternoon. Is this on? Yes? To monitor the implementation of the Convention on the Right of PWD is the job of the RAC. Secretary, please rename this organization and also change its attitude. Or you can set up another committee on the right of PWDs responsible for implementing the convention. The convention is a right-based convention. It's not just about treatment or services. So you have to look at whether the human rights of PWDs are trampled upon, and at least half of the members should be PWDs or organization representatives serving PWDs. I've just received this application form. It's a special one-off grant to carers of PWDs. This is the third time I applied for this. Last time, many parents and self-help organizations got the grant, but this time only a few would get this. You need to have a Section 88 certification, but many parent organizations are attached to NGOs. How could they get the reports and certifications? Well, we should promote self-help organizations. Why are you putting up so many obstacles? Isn't this against human rights? The government should be far-sighted. Barrier-free access is not just about roads or transportation. It's also about information and attitude. The visually challenged can have access to braille, and there are physically disabled who can use computers or a wheelchair to move about. But what about the mentally ill or mentally disabled? We have asked the government to provide simplified version of your websites. We are told that this cannot be done due to resource restrictions. Aren't you not discriminating against the mentally disabled? Lastly, Chairman, members, Secretary, friends, please change your attitude and the choice of work. Don't adopt a welfare and healthcare perspective when considering issue of disabilities. We are now a signatory to the convention. We should adopt a rights-based approach, and policy should be set with a mainstreaming approach.
Ms. Carmen Tan, good afternoon. The government must set up a rights committee for the rights of PWDs. We don't want the RAC because it cannot monitor services provided by the government. According to paragraph 58 of the UN report, there should be representatives of PWDs in the Women's Commission so that our perspectives can be included in the mainstream idea. And according to report paragraph 76 and 75, the government must improve the policies for the health of women with disabilities, and their rights should be protected. According to Section 9 of the Convention, all pamphlets should have a Braille version and a graphic version, and there should be sign language to ensure that all women with disabilities can have a choice. You should also take care of the needs of women with visual impairment. According to the report, using a shuttle workshop is not the right way to implement the convention, because worker only gets paid $21 a day in a sheltered workshop. The government must review all the purpose of shelter workshops on the basis of the convention. And must develop employment opportunities of POW. According to para 69 and 70 of the convention, where I have a mild-grade mental retardation, but I don't want to live in a hostel. I want to stay in the community. The support centers do not provide 24-hour support, and for the severely mentally retarded persons, they can have a 24-hour helper to help them. But for us, we want the same level of support so that our right of choice, right to choice, can be respected. Regarding our needs in the community, please refer to the UN Report 2012 about integration, social integration or community integration. Thank you, Mr. Chang Xun-Kit. I do not have any mental impairment, although I have autism. I hope the government will not look at policies for us from the point of people with disabilities, and then committee on the rights of PWDs should be set up, because RAC would only devote a small part of its work to the needs of PWDs. Besides, it's just an advisory committee. It cannot monitor our policies to see whether they are in line with the obligations under the UN Convention. Thirdly, the perspective of PWDs should be mainstreamed. And for autism with no mental retardation, now, I really cannot comment on the government's policies in this regard, because there is no separate policy for this. Now, we are not suffering from any mental illness, or we do not have any physical or mental retardation, but there is no separate policy for us. The support for us would end at secondary school level. When it comes to higher education, there is no support policy to support us. And for us with autistic features, they can be identified and diagnosed at a very young age. However, there is no systematic assessment of autistic features. So many of us are just unknown to the government or to the community. If the government has no idea our population, it will be difficult. It is difficult for it to formulate long-term policies to help us. Besides, you have never considered involving the mentally retarded or people with autistic features in policy formulation. Secretary, many of our friends have noted your previous speeches, so you don't have to repeat what you have done in the past, because what you did was not out of a right perspective, and they were not really very very specific to our needs. And you don't have to tell us that you have heard our views, because we know that you are not suffering from any hearing impairment. Thank you. Mr. Lai Tai-yu, good afternoon. We want pictures. Please do not discriminate against us. We cannot read so many words. I don't want to live in a hostel. I want to stay at home. I am happier living at home. I want to be independent. I want to be my own master. The UN Human Rights Committee wants the government to step up its efforts. Thank you very much. I'm Lai Tai-yu. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chow Tek-hong. Thank you. In the past 3 decades, I have been using the rehabilitation services of Hong Kong. In 2007, I learned of the UN Convention, and then in July, I went to the EAC to reflect my views, and the view that the electoral provisions should be amended according to the relevant provisions. Now, I don't know, for the mentally handicapped, we have waited for decades. How much longer do we have to wait before the government can really face up to our needs and respect us, so that publicity pamphlets of the government can have a simplified versions with pictures so as to respect our right to know? When can the administration to follow the convention to respect the right to know of people suffering from mental retardation? We are a group of PWDs being ignored. There are different groups of PWDs, and the government must understand Articles 11, 19, and 29 of the Convention and develop support services. And please do not just we cannot just allow guardians to make decisions for us. In 1996-97, we had only a few minutes to speak at summit. However, we people with mental retardation and with autistic features and with different learning needs have not been invited to attend these kind of advisory committees. Is it because we are intellectually challenged? We cannot be represented at such forums? Please understand the convention. Please use a new mindset and understand, and please understand the services provided to us should be on a right basis. And then there must be proper public education publicity. The government should set up a committee for the rights of persons with disabilities, and the Commissioner for Rehabilitation should have his name changed, because we are not just every one of us has some kind of disability, and we PWDs would like to be involved. We want to have barrier-free access. We want to have barrier-free information. We want to have choices. Thank you, Mr. Hui Waiman. Thank you. I am a person suffering from a mental handicap. I graduated from a special school. We have rights. We are not asking for welfare. We don't want policies purely from a healthcare and rehabilitation perspective. Please set up a committee on rights of PWDs as soon as possible. We don't want the RAC Rehabilitation Advisory Committee because it doesn't comply with the requirements of the convention. The LegCo should set up a task force at once to look at this matter. You must have a mainstreaming of the perspective of PWDs, because you one day might suffer from disability. The administration has formulated statutory minimum wage. PWDs have different work capabilities. Why is it that able-bodied persons are not subject to any assessment, and we will be paid less than our able-bodied counterparts? We are also residents of Hong Kong. We all go to work, and this assessment mechanism of the statutory wage mechanism is a form of discrimination according to the convention. The mechanism cannot help open employment of PWDs. Although it is now under review, my friends cannot understand the questionnaires, and we have to call friends how sad we are. If there can be wage subsidy, then more PWDs will be gainfully employed. Fewer people will receive CSSA or stay in sheltered workshops. And then there can be resources saved and better social integration and inclusiveness. Please do not force us to apply for CSSA. We want a wage subsidy. Thank you. Mr. Yuan Hockming, thank you. I'm Deputy Spokesman on Constitutional Affairs from DAB. Although the UN Convention became effective in Hong Kong starting from the 31st of August 2008, there is room for improvement on a number of things. For instance, there isn't support for PWDs, and they face various forms of inconvenience in their daily life. The government should comply with the convention and should also live up to the aspirations and expectations of able-bodied and persons and PWDs. We ask the administration to improve its related policies, including setup of a special committee in order to comply with provisions in the conventions that have not been implemented yet. And then we must increase our protection for PWDs, and particularly those below 12 years old, so that they can also enjoy transport concessionary fares. We should also cover expand the scheme to cover green minibuses, and there should be more easy buses and also rehab buses to offer more point-to-point transportation services for PWDs, and barrier-free accesses should be provided for everywhere as soon as possible. And the administration must proactively respond to calls from the community to have such facilities, and you should improve community facilities.
支援改善大廈嘅服務，以符。
And improvements should be made to the building management services so as to become more inclusive. There should be 5-year community building programs. There should be more hostels for the disabled so as to shorten the waiting time. And there should be a subsidy for carers so as to reduce the financial burden of carers and also the loss they suffer because they cannot go out to work. There should be a quota system for employing the disabled. Tax incentives should be provided to employers so as to encourage them to employ more PWDs. Mr. Lai Chi-sing. Well, I'm a parliament member of SAHK. My submission asks for the government to come up with a timetable for the setting up of a dedicated commission for the disabled. And the commission should look at not just medical treatment and rehabilitation, but the rights-based perspective in the convention. Ms. Lai and Ms. Cheng have already touched on this. This is something that will straddle different government departments, so it should be an interdepartmental initiative, and then disabled groups should be participated. I propose 11 areas of study, which I set out in the submission. As mentioned earlier, we should define the disabled or PWDs. Without a uniform definition, things will not get started. We should have a census of the disabled population. Without proper statistics, it's difficult to deploy resources for different people and different groups. There's an urgent need to conduct a census on the needs of the disabled. We should also learn from other countries. The convention applies to different countries. We should look at how or what kind of difficulties our neighbors are encountering and what new directions they are embarking on. And also in relation to the remarks and comments made by the UN, we should have a timetable on what have been addressed and what have not. And we also should publicize the convention so as to enhance public understanding of the rights of the PWD. And then we can promote access-free community. We should set standards on barrier-free access, access-free transport such as rehab bus and rehab taxi. And we should also look into special education to see if we have got sufficient teachers. We should also look at the insurance and whether public resources are sufficient to provide support to PWDs. Lastly, I want to talk about social enterprise. We should provide support to rehab groups. And lastly, we should consider designating sign language as one of our official languages. So the government should come up with a commission and a timetable. Mr. Lo Wai-chang. Mr. Lo Wai-chang. Sorry, it's a Ms. Tan Mei-heng first. Thank you. I'm the Executive Director of Arts with the Disabled Association Hong Kong. Our association thinks that we should respect the rights of the PWDs. They should have access to arts so that this arts with the disabled can develop comprehensively. We are very dissatisfied with the concluding or the report of the SAR government, because the government only talks about the piecemeal approaches and the fragmented measures provided over the years. We would like to know how, under the convention, we can continuously develop the interest in art of the disabled. If we don't have a comprehensive inclusion policy, the arts community would find it very difficult to develop the audience within the PWDs. And projects on arts may stop after subvention has been exhausted. When disabled artists have already gained some experience, they cannot even move forward, or they may even be no longer be able to do this after the subvention has stopped. There should be totally free, barrier-free access to arts by PWDs. There should be a software and hardware to tie in with policy for barrier-free access to arts by PWDs. We would like the HAD to embark on a policy research on arts for the disabled. In the Home Affairs panel of the third term of LegCo, HAB representative said in a meeting that the inclusion for arts policies was part of the responsibility of HAB. We would like to have an early conclusion of the discussion on the support to disabled arts groups. Over 2 years, over the past 2 decades, we have had a lot of good programs which are widely recognized in the international community. The extension of the convention to Hong Kong gave us some hope, but we are very disappointed now. We hope the government would set up a department which can fully implement the convention based on a human rights approach, so that the PWDs can have equal right to arts and cultural rights, so that their rights will not be deprived permanently. Mr. Law Wai-Chang. Mr. Law. I know the seat has been changed, but sorry, it's difficult for me to use this microphone. Can I have a wireless mic? Well, it's being delivered to you. Yes. Chairman? Yes. Please continue. We're not talking about welfare today. I hope the Secretary is clear about this. We're talking about human rights, rights every citizen should enjoy. Whether we're talking about education of PWDs, employment or care of PWDs, we should have equal rights, so that in the community, when we talk about facilities or policies, there should be suitable means to enable us to be a part of the community. When it comes to rights of PWDs, there should be a higher level committee set up by the administration to implement the UN Convention. We went to Geneva in September. The International Committee had members who are PWDs themselves. Why can't we allow PWDs to have a say, to have their voices heard? Well, the government only wants to do some window dressing by appointing a few PWDs to work on some committees. We hope PWDs can be given a voice on different committees, because this represents the right to participation and also respect for PWDs. The government should set up a high-level committee, and they should also invite different groups of PWDs to be represented. Now we have the Commission on Poverty, and 6 major departments are represented. But they do not discuss subjects related to PWDs. The 6 departments don't do this. And PWDs are not given any chance to participate in the Commission's work. If PWDs don't have any say in the work of the Commission on Poverty, how can they lift themselves out of poverty? And how can we turn the rise and shine in the Convention into the mainstreaming of the right of PWDs? The government should work harder. Mr. Yiu-chung, since the government has signed this convention, you should follow the rules of the game under the convention. It should not say that it doesn't have the necessary resources and leave things at that. We're not just talking about welfare and rehabilitation. I don't know why this must be put under the Labor and Welfare Bureau and the RAC when we want to discuss the rights of PWDs. I hope you would just regard PWDs as ordinary citizens, and you should adopt a PWD-based perspective and allow PWDs to live a normal life. And sometimes the government takes the lead to discriminate against elderly PWDs. Many policies such as the 16 district centers, the CCF, the special supplement for carers, and even the $2 concessions all have age restrictions. If the UN knew this, it would become a laughing stock. The UN committee has commented that the rehab commissioner's rank is too low. There should be better coordination. The government should not implement piecemeal measures. And the UN Commission also wants more resources to be given to the 16 district support centers. But these centers are not suitable for the severely physically handicapped persons. We are told that these are one-stop centers, but there's no shower facilities, no home care support, and there's no urgent residential services.
So for PW that requires 24-hour care, how can these centers help them. So there must be more resources for the community so that even the severely handicapped can live in the community with confidence. And the definition of disability, we hope that the administration can make reference to the classification of the WHO, and please use the various functional disabilities in deciding the level of allowance to be granted. You might not know that some PWDs have to live on the rooftop or in a building with no lift access. So I'm sure they are in a plight. Thank you, Mr. Zhang Kai. Thank you. Many speakers have talked about barrier-free access. I'd like to supplement in this regard. On the whole, the government has improved barrier-free access for us for new buildings and LCSD facilities and new public housing estates. I mean, they are not bad. And even pedestrian crossing has got barrier-free access for us. This is worthy of commendation, and the government has been very positive in responding to our complaints. But in buildings completed before 1997, the situation is regrettable because these are shops and private buildings have so many obstacles for us. Some doors of a means of escape is so narrow that you must open both flaps of the door before you can go in. I have to use one hand to control my wheelchair, so I won't have both hands free to open the doors unless with the help of a passerby. And I have complained to the relevant authority, and the reply I got was these old buildings are not subject to the regulations, and there is nothing we can do to help. According to the UN report, all buildings and hospitals and roads should be accessible to the wheelchair-bound and to PWDs. So for pre-1997 buildings, I don't know how they can be altered. The administration must amend the law to ensure that even pre-1997 buildings are brought under the control of the relevant legislation, and barrier-free access must be provided. There should be a fund set up to help small eateries and shops so that they can apply from the fund to provide barrier-free access. Thank you. All right, Ms. Anka Hong. Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. As a frontline worker or social worker of rehabilitation organization, I'd like to share with you my views. Because we're talking about a lot of areas, I'll focus on two things. First, the issue of allowance, and second, the right to health and life. And the chapters 10 and 25 are relevant. First, the Disability Alliance. Starting from 2006, many organizations and self-help groups and carers and rehabilitation agencies have been discussing with the LegCo. And in 2010, the Ombudsman issued a report to explore the system and also the definition. We really have a lot to work on, and the preliminary responses have been uploaded to the website. And in the main, the administration is saying that the welfare services or facilities will be reviewed from time to time and with regard to latest international trends. However, this is a far cry from what we want, because the ICF was first developed in the 1980s. And in 2001, the UN promulgated the ICF. In some countries, it has been adopted for more than 11 years. Australia, Italy, and Japan, Korea, and other countries have used this to facilitate their planning and even for census. In 2007, in a report of the Welfare Services Panel of this Council, it was mentioned that the Bureau would follow up on the feasibility of the ICF. So far, we have not seen any conclusion from the Bureau. So I hope we can review the definition of disability. Why is it so important? Because to some patients, in the past decades or even for longer, their right to receiving a DA has been deprived of because they must be regarded to be suffering from 100% disability before they are eligible. The Chinese University has recently done a survey on the health, the mental well-being of the PWD. Many of them are suffering from depression, anxiety, depression, and 39% of them are suffering from anxiety, depression. So the government should redefine the definition, should redefine disability. I may not have the opportunity to discuss a neuro center, a neuro health center, the rights to life, and I hope that the administration can follow up. We've got a written submission. Thank you. Ms. Chen Yunshan. Number of speakers have talked about right-based policy and also mainstreaming the perspective of PWD. In an outdoor event, we fully appreciated the importance of this thing. A wheelchair-bound lady fell accidentally, and then when the ambulance men arrived, they said that they would not handle the wheelchair, they will only handle the injured. Because of limited space on the ambulance, they would not take the chairman to the hospital, and we asked if the injured could be discharged after A&E treatment, whether the wheelchair, what was he or she supposed to do, and we were told by the ambulance man that we had to think of a way out. So if a wheelchair-bound person is living independently in the community and all of a sudden he or she suffered an accident, and the wheelchair to him is just like two limbs or the limbs, and if the wheelchair doesn't go with him, who will help him to take the wheelchair home? And if he can be discharged, how can he go home himself? Let me stress that he is a person living independently in the community. So the government is bureaucratic. Its policy has not addressed the needs of PWDs, that has not improved its policies and services to cater for the needs of PWDs. Why can't we have ambulances that can have barrier-free access? And there is also an inadequate supply of ambulances. So we are not really carrying out the spirit of the UN Convention. We've also asked women's well-being clinic and maternity and child care center to provide beds that can weigh women with disabilities, and there should be gynecological bed for investigation. And now we do not just want the administration to tinker, to patch up the policies here and there. We want a total review. Some speakers mentioned commission for the rights of PWDs. The government must face up to this squarely and tell us whether it is going to do it or not. Our proposals can be included in our submission. Please refer to it. Thank you. Mr. Choi Kai-ming. Thank you. I am from the Rehabilitation Alliance Hong Kong and also a representative of the Alliance for Rights of the Disabled. I must criticize the government's outdated rehabilitation policy. It's just like old bottle carrying a cocktail or cocktail juice. Now, this old bottle, in Chinese is Fuk Hong, meaning to recover your health and to give full play to your potential. If you call it Hong Fuk, that means continuous treatment. Now, democracy in Chinese is 民主, meaning people will be the master of themselves. And if you do it the other way around, 主民, meaning you are going to control people. I fail to understand why the administration insists on using Hong Fuk instead of Fuk Hong. Well, rehabilitation has the meaning of vindication, and rehabilitation can cover services for drug addicts and for ex-prisoners. So what is inside this medicine bottle? Services that were first formulated 3 decades ago. And also that report with 30, 40 pages. There is no education, no health care. In other words, it is not really up to standard. And thirdly, in this old bottle, the medication is not potent enough. Otherwise, after so many years of development, how come in Chongchong there isn't a school for the mentally handicapped? Why has the government succumbed to the pressure of the community? I trust that Commissioner for Rehabilitation and members of the committee are willing to help PWDs. If the administration is willing to rename the RAC and don't just put new wine in old bottle or old wine in new bottle, we should have a revamp of the policy so that we can have that PWDs can have new life and they can lead perfectly normal lives. We hope that the panel can set up a task force or subcommittee to oversee such matters. Thank you. I am Yiu-chung from Hip Home Parents Association. Today I'd like to talk about proper planning for preschool children with disabilities so as to shorten the waiting time. Although the administration provides assessment and early education and training for kids with disabilities, the services available are not sufficient to meet the big demand. As at the 31st of October 2012, there were 6,222 kids waiting for the service, and in between 2011 and 2013, there would only be less than 1,000 new places for such services. So the demand could hardly satisfy the supply could hardly satisfy the demand. On average, children have to wait for 1.5 to 2 years before they can receive service. Some of them have to wait until they are 5 before they can have a priority allocation of a school place. Meanwhile, they can only receive 1 year of training off center, and then they have to then go to a special school, or they have to leave their special school to receive training in a center. For parents, they don't want to miss out on the golden opportunities of training. They want the administration to provide more resources so that our children can give full play to their potential. Thank you.
Mr. Mak Hoi-hwa, Chairman. The deputations have reflected the fact that we are not attaching importance to serving the PWDs and meeting their rights. We are spending far less than other developed economies in providing support to PWDs. We should ascertain their needs and promote the mainstreaming of the PWD's perspective. And under the WHO, there's a research report telling us that the PWDs account for 15% of our population, much higher than the past. And policies on PWDs would cover a lot of policy areas such as healthcare, education, and employment. So the policy should not be coming under the Labor Welfare Bureau. As chairman of the Hong Kong Association for the Deaf, I think insufficient has been done to promote inclusive education. But since the promotion of inclusion education, the number of schools for the deaf has dropped from 4 to 1. Education of the deaf has not been given sufficient attention. We are spending much less on deaf students when compared with what we spend on special schools. In a special school, we will spend $200,000 on each student, but when they attend other schools, it's just $10,000 per student. Although the convention places, or the UN Convention places Hong Kong in providing education, but insufficient resources have been devoted. The teacher-to-student ratio is too high. Insufficient training has been provided. Therefore, the number of benefited students is low. And it recommends that an ordinary school should be encouraged to promote inclusive education so that more deaf students can be educated there. We have met with Mr. Ng Ha Kim, Secretary for Education. We would like to upgrade the status of sign language to an official language, and there should be the sign language training and service for tertiary education. We hope that the pilot scheme, which is successful in primary and secondary schools, should be widely promoted. And there should be more counseling provided to the deaf, and public broadcasters should provide sign language in their programs, and there should be more funding support for the organizations serving the deaf. The following 4 speakers would require sign language interpretation because they are not able to speak themselves. So I would extend their speaking time to 5 minutes. The first one is Ms. Lau Lai Fong. In Hong Kong, we have 92,000 people with a hearing impairment or they are deaf, and they rely on sign language as the main channel of communication But in Hong Kong, full-time sign language interpreters are numbered at under 10. The convention confers rights on the deaf, but these rights cannot be realized in Hong Kong now. We propose that the government and council should accept nominated interpreters from the Hong Kong Association of the Deaf to solve the short-term demand. And there should be long-term training and a committee to work on the training and accreditation of sign language interpreters. Turning to inclusive education. These students do not have full rights to the choice of language used. Most schools do not provide sign language support. This goes against the principle of sign language. And these students are marginalized, and you are forcing these students to go to special schools for the deaf, and their right to be included, to be integrated into the mainstream system is denied. There should be better sign language education and better support so that deaf students can get the right support in mainstream schools. There should be proper support in primary schools. It will require only $180,000 to do this in a school. It's just a small sum. My association also asked the administration to enact legislation to recognize Hong Kong Sign Language as one of the official languages in Hong Kong. We believe if Hong Kong Sign Language is an official language, it would be given a legal status, and then resources will be channeled into the promotion and research into sign language, so that the sign language can meet the needs of different groups of deaf and hearing impaired person. And we also want the administration to provide more resources to support NGOs, and also to enhance the access enjoyed by the deaf. And there should be a change to the reliance on NGOs in public consultation. Self-help groups of the deaf, including the Hong Kong Association of the Deaf, have been providing the social services to the deaf, and we have been contributing to the promotion of welfare for the deaf. But they are always struggling under financial pressure. Self-help groups of the deaf represent a direct voice of the deaf. It would serve an important function in promoting a harmonious society. The government should look into ways to help these NGOs and self-help groups. Thank you, Ms. Lau Lai Fong. Next, we have Mr. Zhang Gamquan. I'm from Folk Concern Group of Deaf. I'm Ken Jiang, convener. I'll ask the interpreter to read out my views. I hope she will read out my submission word for word. Mr. Jiang. Poor monitoring. You neglect sign language. You attach importance to oral views. According to Rule 5 of the UN Committee, communication channels to facilitate communication of the deaf. There should be sign language, and you should do more to meet the needs of people with communication problems. There should be a unified system of sign language for Hong Kong. I've learned that on the 21st last month, there was a question raised by Ms. Emily Lau, and the reply from the Secretary for Labour Welfare gave a reply. I'm not happy with the reply. I want to criticize the Labour Welfare Bureau for favoring the oral views, but ignored people using sign language. The heart is not there. They have not done anything concrete for us. And also, I want to criticize the SWD for favoring one particular NGO for the deaf, and in depriving the choices for the deaf. There is no proper support for the deaf. And now you only attach importance to oral views, but not views expressed through sign language. There should be proper certification of sign language interpreters. But they do not. They have this certification, but they do not have people conversant in sign language to be the examiners. They do not invite the children of deaf parents to be examiners. And inclusive education is impossible without proper sign language support. Information for the deaf is insufficient. The government should learn from the US, Japan, and Taiwan. In 2006, the SWD stopped the funding to the tune of $3 million to an NGO. You should recognize other NGOs. You should invite two international experts to attend a special meeting on education of the deaf. There's a disagreement between the two approaches, whether one should go for the sign language or oral expression. The executive director of the NGO don't want to get training in sign language. They cannot communicate with the deaf. There is a case of conflict of interest. They abuse their power as executive committee members. They stand in the way of the use of sign language in education. I think the Association of the Deaf sending people posing as a person with hearing impairment, and the government only gave support to the Hong Kong Association of the Deaf. And actually, we have another NGO which has been cooperating with the Chinese University in educating people to learn about sign language. The election system is closed for the Hong Kong Association of the Deaf, and the deaf and their parents are deprived the right to know, and the status of sign language is compromised. There are many NGOs who are not getting their support, who are working for the welfare of the deaf and sign language. The government should not favor one NGO over others. They should look at their needs and their service provision, and there should be direct funding for all of them. There should be direct funding, and we should do away with the monopoly enjoyed by the Hong Kong Association of the Deaf. The deaf should have the right to choose. Lastly, I hope you will not discriminate against self-help groups or NGOs run by people with deafness.
In June 2010, in International Convention for Education for the Deaf in Vancouver, admitted that it was wrong to use speech to help the deaf, and sign language and speech should be used together, and improper monitoring, and the government should be held responsible for slighting sign language and only stressing the development of speech. In Hong Kong, it's hard to find a sign language interpreter. I have a hearing impairment. Now, when I'm sick, I have to make a prior appointment. If I am suddenly ill, if I cannot find a translator for me, it is difficult for me to get an appointment with the doctor. Many people with hearing impairment or told me that we must develop sign language as soon as possible. In education, we need a translator, and then it will also help us in our further education. Secondly, in banks and other organizations, I want to apply for a credit card. I am deaf. I cannot use speech. I have no choice other than a voice system. So I hope that the government can regulate banks so that people like us would not suffer. And many public transport facilities do not have writing to help us, and we might be caught by a closing MTR door. And sometimes there is a voice or sound alarm or warning, but we can be jeopardized. We don't know that the traffic light phase is going to change quite soon. And if there can be a timer there, it would be much better. And when we go to a Chinese restaurant, I need to get a chip, and if I keep asking what is the chip number now, people may feel disgusted. It would be better if there can be a display to tell us whose turn it is. And I also like to share with you the following. Can we really learn by lip reading? No. If the teacher would only use speech therapy, I cannot learn anything. Anyway, I must use sign language. And we cannot learn concepts that are more difficult to understand. Do you think a hearing device will help us and will make us as able as a person with no hearing problem? No, because if you speak behind me, I cannot hear you. If I can see you, it may be better. For so many years, is a technology able to make me just like able-bodied person. I have got a hearing aid for many years, but sometimes I cannot hear very acutely or clearly. Some in Kowloon Bay, there is a Catholic primary school. Teachers and students can communicate using sign language. I think it is very good. For the able-bodied kids, they can learn some sign language. They can learn about the culture of the persons with hearing impairment, and I think it is good for these children to grow up together with deaf children so that they can become sign translators. Well, when I was a kid, I had to put up with the teacher talking all the time, and now that I'm grown up, I have failed to acquire many concepts. I have not learned a lot, whereas in Canada things are much better. So I hope that there can be parallel development of speech and sign language. Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Wong Yiu-lun. I represent Deaf Power. Yes, PWDs should enjoy rights, not just welfare. We don't want the administration to adopt a medical or rehabilitation approach. Now, we are not sick. It's just that we cannot hear. Now, Chinese-speaking people use English. Chinese use Chinese, and we are deaf. We use sign language. We want to set up a committee for the rights of PWDs to replace the RAC. We hope that the administration would set up a subcommittee to follow up on the implementation of the UN Convention. Anita is another representative of Deaf Power. She has flown to Switzerland in UN to meet with other people. And they all agree that sign language is very important. And what are we asking for? 3 things. First, we want sign language to be one of the official languages in Hong Kong, and there must be proper development and training for the use of sign language. And we should set up a sign language translation center. Within the UN, there is this convention, and Miss Emily Lau has also made a submission to the Council on various aspects of sign language and translation services. We need an assessment. The assessment needs to be done by the deaf, and I think there's been a submission to LegCo on the 31st of August 2008 onwards. UN has already said this. Now, it's also written to Hong Kong, and Ms. Lau has also written to the Council, and it appears that the administration has not followed the suggestions of the UN. I hope that the government can implement what's in the convention as soon as possible. In in mainstream schools, because of integration, there are deaf students. You want to give equal learning opportunities for both the deaf and people with proper hearing. But there are a lot of difficulties. Kid with hearing impairment might have had an operation or hearing device, but is it really fair? No. Although he has got a hearing aid or an artificial ear, that doesn't mean that we can listen as well as our able-bodied counterpart. No, it's not the case. There must be sign language translation. If this is available, I'm sure it will be of great help, and then I can hear everything without missing anything. And for kids with no hearing problem, they might have never come across any deaf child before. And even if he sees a deaf kid using sign language, he may not be able to communicate with the latter because he doesn't understand. Some deaf kids, well, they can use sign language in special schools. If in a mainstream school there can be some deaf students using sign language together, we are saying that the administration isn't doing enough when it comes to dissemination of information to the deaf. Many deaf students do not fully understand what's happening in mainstream schools, and the government does have the duty to publicize. Well, we still have 6 deputations or individuals waiting to speak, and I will confine the speaking time to 3 minutes. We originally intended to end at 6:45. I have the power to extend our meeting to 6 o'clock, but I don't think that is possible. If members do not object, I think we can extend our meeting to 6:30, to no longer than 6:30. Ms. Lam's YC. Well, I'd like to comment how the administration can discharge its obligations under the UN Convention. Well, sign language is so important to the deaf, and I think people in Hong Kong should learn sign language and understand the deaf culture for the deaf. That is, when there is somebody who has hearing impairment, there must be sign language translation. And then before a certain speaker speaks, the sign language interpreter should stand next to him so that the person who's deaf knows who is going to speak. Now, in mainstream schools, students are not allowed to use sign language, and the deaf children are encouraged to use speech. And in a mainstream school, again, sign language is not used, and the kids are not allowed to learn sign language. And the government has this policy. They're of the view that all deaf children should learn speech first. Although they cannot hear, they should learn speech first, and subsequently is relaxed. Now, if you cannot learn, the government thinks that people can learn sign language later, but this will affect the lives of the deaf. Sign language is a system in itself. It's not as simple as a Morse code. It is not a simple system, so you may not be able to acquire it. Well, the critical period for a language acquisition is from 0 to 7 years old. According to some studies, when the critical language learning period is passed, a deaf kid may not be able to acquire the whole system of sign language, even if they have continued to do so for 30 years. So the government recommends that deaf children learn sign language only after they failed to acquire speech. That is already too late. They won't be able to acquire the whole body of sign language. And these students will face a plight. They do not have a proper language system. As a result, their cognitive development would be affected. They don't have the language basis to receive knowledge from the world. And this would indirectly affect their reading and writing skills. As a result, they cannot get a proper education. They cannot move up to higher education. They can only be stuck in grassroots jobs.
I want to quickly move on to my 3 points. There should be the removal of misunderstanding of sign language. Don't think that by learning sign language you are standing in the way of speech acquisition. And sign language support should be everywhere, whether in a special school or in a mainstream school. There should be the training of teachers of deaf students, so that they understand their views and recognize them as a separate and distinct group. Miss Tan Chun Yan, I'm a parent of a child of 6. He has severe hearing impairment, even with the surgery, because the necessary nervous system is not there. There was an implant surgery, but he still finds it very difficult to tell apart different sounds. I'm afraid you relying on speech alone things are very difficult to understand for him. And there are problems with communication. But I'm glad that when he was 3, with the support from the CUHK, we went to a kindergarten where both speech and sign language were used. So through a dual language system, he got a lot of help in development of linguistic competence. And we have been told that after you have learned sign language, you will not be able to learn speech. But since he was a baby, it was 5 years ago, he had been learning sign language. I believe I have learned that the acquisition of sign language has helped his acquisition of speech capabilities. So I hope the government can provide sign language training at an early time, so that the deaf students would be bilingual early in life. Early training should be sustained. Some of the deaf students have hearing problems, so that their comprehension is poorer. They may need to be in the kindergarten for 1 more year. But because the support for the extra year in kindergarten is not provided by the government, their development is affected. We hope intensive training, like linguistic training, can be provided before they enter primary schools. Next, we have Mr. Yiu-chung in Milan. In a conference convened in 1880, where there was a proposal to cancel sign language, and many countries have been practicing the teaching of speech. But in recent language acquisition studies, we have learned that speech plus sign language in a dual system would help the deaf children to develop abilities, both socially and linguistically. So a dual system can help the development of the deaf students. So there was a public apology extended by the conference about the previous proposal to cancel sign language. Returning to the UN Convention, it's said that we need to have sign language and also the dedicated teachers for the deaf, because sign language and oral language should enjoy equal status. Sign language should not be a fallback for the deaf students who cannot acquire the oral language. It should not be regarded as a remedy. Academics know that there is no evidence that acquiring sign language would hinder the acquisition of speech by the deaf. But there are many people who harbor misunderstandings. The government should have a clear educational policy so that the deaf children can acquire sign language, which can provide free access to information. We should provide suitable education to the deaf students so that their full potential can be developed. Students should also remove obstacles faced by these students. For the deaf, the biggest learning difficulty is the difficulty of communication through sign language. This obstacle can be diminished. Local education policies should stipulate clearly the role played by sign language in the education of the deaf, and there should be suitable services and teacher training provided. There should not be a one-size-fits-all solution for the deaf. When they are young, the deaf should be given different choices. They may want to acquire oral language or sign language or both. The promotion of sign language is not done at the expense of oral language. In the UN Convention, the UN Committee recommends that more resources should be provided to serve the deaf so as to fully develop their potential. Well, the policy of providing $10,000 or $20,000 grants for the deaf have not been subject to any review in years. There should be a review. If the visually blind can be provided with Braille, then I think that deaf students should also be given support in the form of sign language. Ms. Siu Fen, I'm a parent of a deaf child. My child suffers from severe hearing impairment. Without a hearing aid, he cannot hear any sound. The public and parents of deaf children may have this misunderstanding. They think that because they are deaf, they must also be dumb. But with a hearing aid, they can learn to speak. But that can only be done with special training so that they can be trained to hear and to speak. You may think that with hearing aid and they can read the lips and then they can behave or communicate like ordinary children, and then they can understand the able-bodied teacher. That's not right. When I try to practice with my child, when she reads my lips, she might not be able to understand me fully. She might be distracted to unrelated subjects. Even with the implant, the deaf child may be able to hear something, but the hearing is not improved beyond the level experienced by the deaf. they may not be able to listen to your speech fully. There is still some handicap standing in the way of full comprehension. And my daughter went to a Sunday school with able-bodied children. She complained and said she wouldn't want to go. She could hear the instructor. She could hear the voices, but she couldn't understand. And there were many loud voices, and she heard about a lot of noise. She found that difficult to tolerate. You may think that with an implant, the deaf can hear normal speeches, but actually it's not a full comprehension. And the implant has to be maintained after a few years, and there's no support, and the implant would cost tens of thousands of dollars, not affordable by all families. We hope the administration can help us with insurance coverage or extension of warranty period of the implant. Ms. Choi, G1. My daughter suffers from a severe hearing impairment. She cannot even hear a plane flying by. As a result, she has difficulty in expressing herself through speech and sign language, and help her a lot. With the advancement in technology, we can have an implant or some other hearing aid. But not all hearing impaired people can be helped this way. The use of sign language can help them expressing themselves. Although Hong Kong is an advanced community, sign language is not an official language. My daughter goes to a special educational center, and initially she was forced to try to speak. That was difficult, and then her difficulty was known, and she was allowed to use body language, not sign language. So she was not able to learn sign language properly. Fortunately for her, when she was 6, she went to a kindergarten where both sign language and speech were used. She was happy there. She learned a lot of things in the kindergarten. So apart from students with hearing impairment, there were also 20-odd able-bodied students. She was able to build up her confidence because her fellow students also learned to use sign language. That's integration in the true sense of the word. In Hong Kong, when we talk about inclusive education, you just try to place them in an ordinary school, just because the school is willing to accept students with hearing impairment, but there's no support. There's no sign language, and these students, deaf students, are very lonely. I know a friend that deaf student went to an ordinary school for 6 years, and still he always invited the same friends from the special schools on her birthday. In this Catholic school where sign language is used, the students have a good time, they were confident. Other students have also learned to use sign language to communicate with these students with hearing impairment. Miss Esther Lee Lai Fan. Well, I'm a principal of a mainstream school. I would like to share with you the experience of my school in the past 6 years because we participated in the CUHK's integration project, and we have a few deaf students enrolled over the years. I think I should draw your attention to some facts. Sign language is very important to deaf students. You have deaf teachers and able-bodied teachers teaching together, and they learn very well. Can you imagine that what a 4-year-old student would behave who was deaf? When the student came, he would attack other students. He also bit his own shoes. And then after he learned sign language, he was able to communicate with others. One day, the teacher told me that a student cried because his his mother scolded him, and another deaf student using sign language to comfort him, saying that there's no need to cry. So they can use different ways to communicate.
Have you considered saying good morning to a kid who's 5 years old? Well, a kid was 5 years old. I addressed him, greeted him. I said good morning, and he could only return good morning and then saying his own name. And then it was only a few months afterwards he was able to respond to my greeting properly. And then there was a parent at an interview. She told me that her kid had studied for 6 months in a particular kindergarten for 6 months. However, he could not just adapt to the situation there. And after coming to my school, he felt more comfortable. And with more deaf children staying together, the other kids will know the needs of this group of children, and then they can have they can accept one another, and then they can really get along with acceptance and inclusion. So I hope there can be resources, there can be teachers for the deaf going to mainstream schools to help kids who are deaf. Thank you. Question session for members, 3 members, Dr. Fernando Zhang, Emily Lau, Sit Ho, Li Chek Yen, 4. All right. Shall we have 4 minutes for each member? And then I invite the secretary to provide an overall reply. Dr. Fernando Zhang. Thank you, deputations and individuals who are concerned about the rights of PWDs. Thank you for letting us know your stories. And we should talk about the matters of principle. Because of the constraint of time, we may not be able to ask the administration to respond to your separate concerns one by one, because we only have 4 minutes each. Many parents talked about the use of speech, both speech and sign language in education, and also the concerns of the ex-mental ill, and also the views of people with autistic features, and also needs preschool training needs, and that we don't want a medical and welfare approach in dealing with the needs of PWDs. Rather, what they want is a right-based approach. I think the message was delivered very clearly, and I hope the administration has heard their views. The UN report is concerned about implementation and monitoring by the country. Para 83 and 84 expressed the concern that the contact point, the commissioner is too low ranking, and it lacks the independent monitoring mechanism under Section 33(2) of the Convention. And they would like us to enhance the powers and authority of the commissioner. And we should have an independent monitoring mechanism with active participation of stakeholders. So I'd like to give the floor to the Secretary to respond. Thank you. Thank you for the valuable comments, and we will certainly consider these views very carefully. We agree with Dr. Chung. We entirely agree with the views of the UN, and we have undertaken to review the ranking of the commissioner, and we've already started the relevant work. And we will help his team, and the supporting structure would also be considered. And next year, we're going to give an account of our review to members. We do agree that there is the need, or we totally appreciate the call to upgrade the ranking of the commissioner. The RAC. Now, Mr. Chen is here. The RAC is a highly representative forum. I must thank everyone involved, including the chairman, Mr. Chen. Well, they serve on a persona basis, and they have done a lot, and they have expressed the aspirations of the relevant parties. Allow me to supplement. There's representatives from parents and stakeholders and organizations. Officials are there to play a supporting role, not as the leader. I hope members can understand this. No, my question's not been answered. He's just repeating what I said. I am asking what is the response to the UN's recommendation that is to have an independent monitoring mechanism. As I said, we believe the RAC is already playing a certain role in this regard. Ms. Emily Lau, I thank the deputations for expressing the views to us. I went with them to Geneva in March, and tomorrow I'm going to have another meeting with them upstairs to discuss how we can promote the rights of PWDs. While you are very rather unhappy with Mr. Matthew Chung, let me tell you that he's much better than the Secretary for Development, Paul Chan, who was absent last Saturday when we discussed the development of Northeast NT. But still, many deputations representing PWDs are here, and we have many deputations here representing the deaf. Well, last week we talked about education for the deaf, and as I said, I asked a question about this. There are only 10 sign language translators in Hong Kong, and the secretary was ashamed to answer my question. I just wrote a letter to the secretariat. I hope we can have sign language translation for all our meetings. Of course, that would mean more spending, but that can promote employment, and in future, TV should broadcast our meetings with the sign language translation. Well, we have teachers here and parents here, and there is so much inadequacy. Mr. Zhang, you have to tell us, how do you promote the use of sign language for these children? They urgently need the assistance of the administration. Mr. Zhang, yes, we are pleased to have the comments and suggestions of parents and organizations representing the deaf. We have set up a working group under the RAC, committed to see how we can promote the use of sign language in Hong Kong. It will be among the priorities of the RAC. RAC is concerning the training of sign language translators. For sure, we don't have enough of them in Hong Kong. And what should be the flow of accreditation and mechanism? In the past, Hong Kong CSS and also the Society for the Rehab had such training programs. And the promotion of sign language and whether it should be one of our official languages in the long term. And the task force has approached the stakeholders. And the conclusion is the first thing to do is to promote sign language first. With a change in culture, the next step is to see how we can make it an official language in Hong Kong. I have written to several to the TV stations asking them to offer sign language. TVB was the only one to reply to me, telling me that there aren't enough translators in Hong Kong. So the buck is being passed around. So if our colleagues are willing, the administration is willing, then perhaps we have a high hope of success. The deputations don't want an RAC, but Committee on Rights for the PWDs. Chairman, you refuse to do that. I'm afraid this will be a standing item for us. Secretary, they don't want the RAC, but a Committee for the Rights of PWDs. Well, this is just a terminology. Please don't have the misconception that RAC is just a talk shop. In fact, it has a very wide scope of work, very practical, and in the implementation of the convention is fully tasked to monitor the progress. Why has the Secretary changed the terms of reference of the RAC out of the blue? Don't treat us as if we were only born yesterday. We're all here, so please be serious. How can the RAC be the same as a subcommittee on rights of PWDs? RAC is to advise the government in all matters related to the rights of PWDs. The name is called rehabilitation, but its scope of work is very wide. The chairman of the RAC and members also attended the conference in Geneva. So it's not just about rehabilitation. Ms. Ho, yes, I also like to thank the deputations and individuals for coming here. In particular, we really appreciate their resilience, and they have certainly been very strong. You can call it anything, but the problem with RAC is it's just an advisory committee. It has no teeth. It can only advise the government. Many people can tell you their suggestions and views. But if you look at para 16.2, you will follow up on the recommendations of RAC where appropriate. So only when you have money. Now, the deaf children are only provided with hearing aids recently. It's not that the parents, the organizations, the deputations have not told you. Only very recently have they been provided with two types of aids. Now, regardless of the level of impairment, now for if the impairment is lighter, the hearing aid may interfere with his hearing, and for the seriously impaired, that aid is not useful at all. We want a committee with teeth. You may say that the EOC has some enforcement ability, but the UN committee would like the EAC to be more proactive in pushing the administration to legislate and to promote to deploy resources. You say that you will follow up the issues raised by RAC as appropriate. And as for sheltered workshops, the UN committee accused you of exploitation, whereas people of different gravity of disability and abilities are placed together doing the same kind of job in shelter workshops. They are all sticking labels. Besides, there is no lifelong learning there. Political parties and groups have told the administration that for people suffering from mental handicap, lifelong learning is all the more important to you, because after they have left school and joined a workshop, they need the opportunities for continued development of their personality and intellectual ability. If they're all there to stick labels and to make up cardboards, it's useless. Please do not lie to us. We need a committee as recommended by the United Nations.
Secretary, I've heard the members. We have said that the EOC is the enforcement agency, and advisory body we have the RAC. They are there to monitor the government efforts and measures. Of course, in the longer term, we'll all take into account this recommendation to see whether in the longer term we need to set up such a committee. We believe the current mechanism, as things stand, is appropriate. RAC and EOC do not have the power to deploy resources. And if they ask the government to do it, it's a very difficult process to get things done. Mr. Leach again, I would like to thank the deputations for coming to express their views. I'm very disappointed by the administration. Well, they are very environmentally friendly. They are recycling ideas. They're recycling what they did in the past. And then when they hurt you and make all those recommendations, you respond by telling us what you did in the past. So it's a very nonsensical here. They talk about the high unemployment rates of PWDs, and the average wages are way lower than able-bodied counterparts. So you reported all you did in the past to the committee, and they responded by putting forth the recommendations. For example, minimum wage is a system whereby the PWDs can ask for assessment, but they dare not do this because of fear of dismissal. But there should be assessment, in my view, that for all, so that those who fall under the threshold should have their wages brought up, but those who are paying higher than the minimum should not have their wages reduced. We want to have a quota system for employment to solve the problem of high employment or high unemployment. They have not made any improvements. Those who are funded by the government have not improved the system, and you are criticized for giving a low bonus based on consumer price movements, and they say this is close to exploitation. I would say it's actually exploitation, and you're not going to improve the shelter workshops. And many parents have told you that it's important to have both speech training and sign language training. So are you going to tell us what you did in the past only, or would you be prepared to respond? Well, I've said that we agree that there's a case to look into the rank of the rehab commissioner. Next year, we are going to get a new direction. We'll look at the entire establishment to see if there's something new that we should provide. But you are just rehearsing old ideas and old measures. Well, we need to do something about employment. And you said minimum wage did not apply to PWDs. That's not correct. That's not correct. Minimum wage applies to PWDs. It's just that they have the right to ask for an assessment. Well, that's my way of putting it. It's just a more direct one. We think that a quota system wouldn't work. The EU, the UK have all cancelled the quota system. We would like to be on the positive side. We'll equip them with training. And the SWD has been giving $100 million to promote employment of PWDs, especially social enterprises. And the selective placement service of the Labor Department has been enhanced. An employer hiring a person with disabilities will get $20,000 maximum for fitting supporting facilities. We are exploring new things to help the disabled to get employment. Next, Mr. Yiu-chung. When I read the response of the administration to the UN Commission, much is said about the things that they have done, but very little is said about the shortfall. I think the administration should come to the realization and understanding that what you are doing for the PWDs is not really about welfare. It's their rights. You are going to provide, or you are providing a disability allowance. Would you be considering providing different levels of allowance in accordance with the levels of disability? For historical reasons, barrier-free access on private premises have not been regulated. Do you have a plan whereby each year you are going to enhance the provision by certain percentage points? But instead of just saying that these are private premises, we can do nothing about them, the government should show some responsibility in this regard as well. And in due course, we are going to have a medical insurance scheme for all. How about PWDs? Well, they may have special needs, or they may have a higher need for healthcare services. Would there be special measures to provide a higher level of support to them? Well, the Labor Department has a selective placement service. We can provide $4,000 a month to employers hiring PWDs. We don't have regard to the degree of disability. or the subsidies are $4,000 or 2/3 of wages, whichever is higher. This is to encourage SMEs and employers generally to employ PWDs. On barrier-free access for new or converted or additional premises built, they must comply with the barrier-free requirements. But what if an employer's premises have no such facilities? We can provide a subsidy of $20,000 per person with disabilities employed. That may not be sufficient, but at least we are providing some encouragement and some help to these employers. We don't have any set policy as yet on healthcare insurance. In 2008, the convention was extended to Hong Kong in August. In that financial year, in relation to support measures for the disabled, the support, I'm not talking about welfare, we spent $16.6 billion, and this year is $23 billion, or an increase of 40%. So since the extension of the convention to Hong Kong in the years, we have provided much more support. We want to have integration of the disabled and the able-bodied. So we have been trying to get more resources to get more things done. I don't want to have a second round of questions because we have to adjourn by 6:30. Mr. Matthew Zhao, please give us a comprehensive response. Don't repeat points already made. Yes, I want to supplement a few more points concerning the proposal to mainstreaming PWD views. We attach importance to the rights of PWDs. It's not that we are only looking at welfare. In formulating policies, we always look at the needs of PWDs. I will give you an example. In relation to barrier-free access, we were roundly severely criticized by the EOC. We were said that there were 3,000 locations that failed to live up to the standards, and 200-odd HA facilities failed to live up to the requirements. I was asked to look into those and to deal with those by the CS4A. We know that it's the rights of PWDs. So I have been leading a task force which have representatives from different departments. And 90% of those locations were fixed. We secured a funding of $1.3 billion. The remaining will be addressed in the coming years. So the culture is changing. I agree that there is a lot of room for improvement. We need to work even harder. But the cultural change is something that's happening. We attach importance to the rights, and we treasure your views. And very soon we are going to appoint a disabled member to join the Women's Commission. And some suggest that we have attached little importance to alleviation of poverty among PWDs. There is a task force, one of the 6, and PWD is the vice convener of that task force. So in our mind, we always attach importance to PWD's rights, not just their welfare. Okay, if you want to report any progress, please take the initiative to inform us so that we can arrange a meeting for progress report. We can also talk to you periodically. All right, Chairman, now you have taken this up for the panel. I wanted to set up a subcommittee, and you said no. So I hope the Secretary will come back to report regularly. Well, time's up. I would like to thank the 33 deputations and individuals for coming, and I Special thanks go to the sign language interpreters. Meetings is now adjourned. I wish you a very happy Christmas and New Year. The next meeting